Good morning, everyone. I am Joe Kovacic, and I work in the DISA Emerging Technology Directorate. We'd like to welcome you to today's technical exchange meeting. Nintex will be presenting its workflow automation platform in today's session. Need to go over some administrative items before we get started. First, please mute your DoD 365 Microsoft Teams sessions. Second, this session is being recorded to allow future scrutiny of the presented capability. By members of DISA and the DoD community. Third, this is a public forum, so no proprietary or sensitive information should be shared in this session. Fourth, we encourage questions during the session, so please use the raise hand function in the Teams menu to alert the presenters when you have a question. You can also enter your questions in the chat area in written form at any time during the presentation. Questions will be addressed in the order they are received. I have to provide the following full disclosure and disclaimer. This technical exchange meeting does not infer any intention by DISA or the DoD to enter into an acquisition, contract, purchase, or endorsement of the presented capability. This session is purely for informational purposes only. We do not control how session participants will proceed with the conveyed content. Access to the technical exchange session video, slide deck, and other artifacts will be made available through a National Security Innovation Network website, whose link is provided in the TEMS session invitations each of you received. I have not yet received a copy of the slide deck for today's session, so I'm unable to post that in the chat area as of right now. As soon as I receive it, I will post the link up in the chat area. And with that said, let us commence with the presentation. So over to you, Nintex.
Good morning, everyone. Can someone raise their hand just to make sure that everyone can hear me? All right, thank you. I'm going to introduce you to the Nintex Process Platform. My name is Bingham Blaylock, and my colleague, Ray Cabral, he'll be providing the demo. I'd like you also to know that this was all made possible and sponsored by our great partners over there at Abrahams. Give me 1 second, I'm trying to change slides. So we're going to do introductions first. We'll go over a little bit of Nintex and the DISA background. We'll talk about the Nintex Process Platform. I think it'll be a great idea just to reintroduce you. We'll talk about some use cases, and just depending on time, might skip ahead, go right into the demo. Of course, we're going to follow up that with some Q&A and some next steps. So first, I'd like to introduce Abrahams. Does anyone from Abrahams want to come off mute and introduce yourselves? No worries. Abrahams is a wonderful Nintex partner of ours. They're a consulting firm. They're minority woman-owned. They're also a small business enterprise. They serve all sorts of technology, small, medium, large. They've been in business for quite a bit, 2006, and we've been great partners for, I think, at least these last 5 years. They are a full cycle IT services company, which is why they fit so nicely with Nintex as partners. They provide security, DR, cloud, 24/7 help, desk storage, security ops, anything and everything under the sun. Really, their niche solutions, they like to focus on security, networking, and storage, which are all big in DoD. And then consulting services, managed cloud, and professional. A little bit of overview of Abrahams. This helps. Again, they were started in 2006. They provide just an assortment of services. They have hundreds and hundreds of vendor partners that they work with. So anything that you need, they can make sure that you're all taken care of. Is there anyone from Abrahams that would like to add anything else that I didn't? All right, so a little bit about Nintex. I'm sure maybe some of you folks are familiar with Nintex, but this is always a good recap. So we are a digital process leader. We provide low-code process intelligence and an automation platform with a purpose to empower companies to simplify the creation of their businesses, applications. We want to connect people. We want to connect systems and processes and the whole focus is to deliver results quickly. We have more than 10,000 customers, including 50% of the Fortune 500, with a high customer satisfaction rate of an NPS score of 75 plus. Last year, we generated more than $250 million in annual recurring revenue. We are also achieving industry-leading profitability, and we are a great place to work. We have over 850 members worldwide today. When I started in the US, I was actually employee number 31. If that's a little fun fact for you. All right, let's get a little familiar with Nintex and DoD. You can see that with Nintex, you're always in good company. I did mention that we are leveraged by 10,000 companies across the globe. But what I wanted just to kind of point out here that, as you see, DISA is actually a current customer of ours. So just knowing that there probably isn't any type of situation, large or small, that Abraham's or Nintex as a platform can help you with. So a little Nintex and DISA history. DISA has been a Nintex customer for well over 10 years. The focus was to process workflow and forms on SharePoint environments. So there's about 42 mission partners. There's about 30 to 40 servers with Nintex on them today on a few different forms. The majority is the DEPS program with about 50,000-ish users. There's also, we have worked very closely with the Army, has about 315,000 users, and the Navy across the board with over, well over 2,000 workflows created and built across DISA. The DoD Portal, which I'm sure that you're familiar with, but it is a dedicated SharePoint hosting service providing combatant commands, military services, and DoD agencies. I bring it up just because it's all built using Nintex, and it's an incredible success story. So if any of you would like to know or understand more about it, I'd be happy to share or answer questions at the end of this call or in a private email. I know that there's some folks that are also considering migration, and I just want you to know that that is a common conversation that we have here at Nintex. Right now, we're working with the Navy to help them migrate and move all of their workflows in order to the cloud to make sure that they're successful. We have programs in place in order to help customers so that transition is easy and flawless, and there's no conversations on replatforming. So as you know that we are a company focused with the future in mind. All right, now I'm sure that you're ready to get in. Did someone have a question? All right, no worries. So right now, we understand that companies are under extreme pressure to improve the efficiency of their businesses. So really where we want to focus on is we talk to organizations we try to identify several reasons that they're looking to automate. And what we've found is, of course, to reduce costs. They want to minimize the risk and maintain compliance, especially important for business in highly regulated industries, to increase productivity within their org, and to improve customer service and remove friction from that service. We like to take a different approach when it comes to process management and automation. So traditionally, we're started here at discovery and mapping. Discovery mapping a process is always challenging, and most tools cause processes to be difficult to find with lack of collaboration and standardization. It's not the Nintex way. Traditional automation, for instance, requires heavy coding and development resources that are restricted on how quickly you can automate or even implement. That is not the Nintex way. Time to value is slow for the most part. Maybe there's lots of different platforms that offer some similar capabilities. You have no idea where to start. Or you need someone that is capable of understanding the different types of automations that you need in each one of those systems. So you need an expert. So time to value can be slow and hard to measure, as projects can take years. But Nintex, we always want to focus on we're easy to use process platform. We like to engage teams collaboratively. We like to manage and improve their business processes. We want to be agile and easy to use. by the line of business, those LOBs, and we can be implemented in days, and it's built for constant change, which I think now as we are looking to move everything to the cloud, being agile is becoming more important than ever. So here is the Nintex process platform. It's quite a bit bigger. We used to only have workflow, then we added forms, and you can see through some acquisitions and product development, we've really created quite the platform. For today's call, we're really going to introduce you to process discovery, which I think is very fun. But the meat and potatoes of our conversation is really going to be focused on this automation portion of it. And we're going to introduce you to Nintex K2. So I also like to make sure that we're focused on tools that are valuable for you today. Currently, Nintex is used on SharePoint. Nintex RPA is available. That's robotic process automation through Cryon, which is a little bit related. But really, we're going to be focusing on process discovery due to timing and our low-code app development tool. All right, we're going to kick things off. Let's get into the Nintex process discovery and what is it and why is it cool. So the reason why we have process discovery, it's because sometimes it's hard to sit in a chair to figure out exactly what you need to automate. You know that there are tons of things to do, but you need a plan, you need to figure out where you need to focus or what's even valuable to the organization. So before any organizations can improve or even automate their processes, they've got to be able to identify existing processes and understand how employees do their work. So the whole point of process discovery is to capture real world data and then use that data to generate interactive process maps, automation recommendation scores. The whole point is so you, the business, can not only visualize your processes, but you can also easily decide which ones you want to focus on, document, optimize, automate, that whole thing. Not only that, I think this part is pretty sweet. We have built process discovery with patented AI technology. So the Nintex process discovery, it is our own proprietary tool to help organizations maximize the value of things like workflow or RPA. And all we do is we just focus on the business process, we correlate variations, and then we make automation recommendations so you can enhance that efficiency. Let's get into a little bit about how process discovery works. So number one, we're going to activity record. So we have discovery bots or robots that run in the background on an end user machine and records user interactions with business applications as they go about their day and complete tasks. Okay, that's step one. What do we do in step two? We need to collect that data. We call it data translation. So we're going to collect the data discovered by those bots, and it's compiled in the customer's process discovery database. And then we go through it and we prepare it for analysis. Step three, what do we want to do? Now we're getting into some of the fun part. We're going to take a look at that algorithm, application, and machine learning process and use our discovery engine's AI, and it's going to crunch all that data, and then it's going to build a behavioral understanding of flows while also growing smarter and more effective. Because this is with AI, it's continually learning your processes and evaluating them and suggesting rooms for improvement without you having to do anything. Process selection, I guess on step 4, sorry. Process mapping and recommendations. So you get a console that displays a visual map for all your processes, even presents a return on investment type of numbers. It's very fantastic. You'll love it. Process selection, of course. Now we've got process analysts determines the automation red lines for the recommended variants. And then, of course, now you need to do something with that automation, and we have streamlined automation. We record the activities, we take a look at the data, then we have it in an algorithm where we use our AI technology. We create a process map as well as recommendations, and then you can go and select those processes which make sense to the organization to automate. And we've streamlined that automation by identifying all of that. And then we have tools that take that process and then can create a template for you to go about your way. Take a look at this. This is an example. One company with 13 employees ran this report for 1.5 days, and they discovered 13 processes that could have been leaned out or automated even further. That's just 1.5 days of running a report for one small team. Just think of the power that you can have as you expand this across, your different lines of business. Okay, so I'm going to skip through this a little bit, but this is just a summary. I essentially just want to tell you that the whole point of this is to just identify your automation opportunities so you can maximize your workforce. You can have real visibility into your applications and understand trends in order to make business decisions. And then the point is operational excellence, because now that automation is such a focus, we really need to make sure that we have operational excellence so we're scalable and everything runs the way that we want it to. Now that we've done all this process discovery, all this wonderful mapping, ran all these bots, worked with all these different lines of business, let's go and review a little bit of the K2 platform in detail. Now, I know the most fun part is, of course, watching the demonstrations. So I am going to highlight this, as some of it might be a little bit repetitive, but I do think it's important to go through it and make sure that you're aware of some of the functionality or things that, as Ray goes through the demo, I want to call out and have you pay attention to. So for forms, for instance, I want to make sure that you understand there's multiple data systems. So multiple data sources used on a single form. Competitors like Power Apps, for instance, tend to struggle with this. It's either being restricted to a single source or requiring complicated setups. Browser-based design, so this is a low-code design. You can connect to lines of business. So K2 Smart Objects make it easy to display or modify data in your line of business directly from your forms. We have rules and validation. You can reuse across multiple applications. So think about this. You can build an Nintex K2 Smart Form once and then use it across one or more workflow applications. You can even make changes to the form and all your applications will immediately be updated. Then, of course, available across all of your devices. Hold on a second. Running into a little bit of an error. There we go. All right, so now we're going to talk about workflow. I'm going to just have a few highlights. When we say visual designer, I really want you to understand that I really mean visual design and configuration. So competitive products often require scripting. We don't do that. For no code, including scripting, is never required. Common process requirements like rework, parallel approvals, calling sub-processes, escalations, they're all easily configured in the designer, and it's just a few clicks. So we're all about speed to market. Built-in version control, ability to roll back, previous process management, lifecycle management, real-time workflow validation, and smart assist. So that enables you on the go, so you can learning by surfacing best practices and design tips. So those are a few of the things I want you to pay attention to workflow. We're going to get into now. I think this is pretty cool integration. So visual configuration of connectors and data properties to surface across all your applications. I think that's important. Real-time connection that allows for two-way communication between K2 and your line of business systems. We leverage native security of the app being connected to, and then reusable connectors. Looks like I got a little bit ahead of myself on that one. Analytics. So of course we have out-of-the-box process reports, displaying process metrics, which is important to know, real-time graphical insights using K2 Viewflow, and integrate with third-party reporting tools like Power BI, Tableau, and you can even connect with cognitive or machine learning services for deeper insights. Very, very powerful. All right, we have wizards. So we have an app wizard, which provides a 3-step wizard-based approach. So you can quickly building a simple application. This is wonderful, depending on how you're choosing to deploy K2. We have smart starters. In both cases, the apps everything is customizable, and the current list of smart starters is below. Security and governance. I just wanted to highlight a few things. I thought this could be important to know. You'll also have this PowerPoint as well. I can see that I've been talking for almost 16 minutes, so we're going to get through this a little bit faster. For those of you that are familiar with Nintex and K2, these are some of the main differences. Maybe you'll see them during Ray's demo, but where Nintex is no code, K2 is low code. There's more customization options for your forms, connectors, dashboards. Smart objects is another differentiator. Forms can push data into a database without a workflow, which Nintex consistently needs forms and workflow to work together. Reporting data constantly is up to date. And we have some more advanced task management in K2 as far as the system goes. But all of that does mean that there's a little more requirement of a setup. This K2, we have K2 Cloud and K2.5. We're showing you K2.5 today. So it's independent. It's its own platform with its own workflow engine. It does not rely on another system like SharePoint. That's what makes it so valuable. You can integrate with all your systems and with the different line of businesses, but it doesn't rely on any one of those systems in order to work. Case management is a use case typically that we see quite a bit for Nintex K2. And I just wanted to call that out, just as you get an idea maybe for use cases as Ray provides the demo. And then finally, this is kind of my recap, a little bit of sales pitch before we go into the technical review. All right, let me make sure there we go. So what I want to leave you with before we head into the demo is that low-code tooling allows you to orchestrate the flow of work with the simplicity of drag and drop design, which is the focus nowadays. We're moving too fast. We don't need to code anything as much as we do before, though it's still very important. Typically comprising of workflow forms, system and application integration, you get reports, processes built with Nintex K2 are comprehensive applications that transform your business and ensure work is done effectively. Our K2 products make it possible for your business to become more responsive to customer and employee needs by streamlining applications, development time, and in turn reducing those costs and improving your business's bottom line. And so now, I know I've been speaking for about 20 minutes. What we're going to do is I'm going to hand it over to Ray Cabral. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we're going to provide you a demo of K2. Now, during this demonstration of K2, I will be managing the message box. So if you do have a question and I can fit it into the demonstration and it makes sense, I'm going to be happy to share that and try to get that answered for you.
Thank you, Bing.
Yeah, of course, Ray.
Hey everyone, my name is Ray Cabral. I'm a senior solutions engineer with Nintex, and I support our public sector team, both state and local and federal. I've been working with Bing for a little over a year now, and I essentially provide the demos, answer any technical questions, and really just kind of give you a tour of all the products that we offer in our suite. And as Bing mentioned, today we're going to be talking primarily about K2, which is a workspace and automation tool. That is essentially what I have on my screen right now is K2. It is browser-based, so to access K2, you just need a browser as an end user. We also have a mobile application for K2, so if you want to enter your workspace, you can just download the K2 app and have access to all of the custom-built business apps on your phone, tablet, or you could always use your desktop. Essentially, it's an aggregation of task management, all the processes that you're part of, and all the productivity applications and databases that you would interface with day to day. But it consolidates everything into one workspace, so it's easy for you to interact with these productivity tools. So if we look at the screen right here, I'm in a case workspace. So I'm logged in as myself in this K2 environment. So there is an authentication required to get in. This could hook in directly to your directory, and you can use single sign-on to access this environment. But as a user, I can go ahead and control settings like, am I actually working today or am I out of office? This is handy because there's orchestration and task management built into this environment. So if I'm delegated specific tasks, if I want to check out of office, I can do that under my user management page and delegate where my work goes when I am out of office. If a worker forgets to do this, there's also administrative delegation that you can assign on behalf of the user. But as a user myself, I can check out and allow my task to funnel to a group of people or another worker entirely. So that's pretty handy. And then on top of that, everything that I would do day to day for a specific workspace is consolidated. Now, what I also have access to is other workspaces. So let's say I am a tad cross-functional, and not only do I do case management, but I also handle some IT administration. So I have an integration workspace that I can interact with as well. I can easily just transition workspaces, and these are all permissioned to me by our governance environment or the management hub within K2. So you can delegate which users in your environment has access to which workspaces, and all of them are completely customizable. So that is another area of K2 that is pretty nice, is just being able to transition from one workspace to another. And these have their own unique forms, their own unique productivity tools assigned to them. And there may be some crossover there as well, and their own workflows. So if I were to transition back to the case workspace, something else that's here is the tasks that I have issued to me. This is personalized only to me. So I only see my individual tasks, and again, I can check out if I need to and have them delegate to someone else. Now, this is handy because what we can do is we can issue tasks out exclusively in K2, or we can send email notifications as well to the email inbox of the user. But you can bypass that, so you're not having a ton of task emails go into your email inbox, and you can kind of leave your email inbox for external communication and all your internal tasks and approvals within just K2. But if you want to opt into both, also something you can do as well. So I have one area where I can efficiently go through all of my tasks and go ahead and respond to them. Now, a response could be approve, it could be do something, I can redelegate. Really what I do within this task is all customizable, but ultimately it links back to my forms and workflows, which being outlined in his demonstration. We'll get back to this in a second. Now, within my workspace, I also have individual applications. So these are all customizable, and they are tailored to specific processes in my workspace. So as a case manager, I may have some claims that I process or issues, maybe some contracts that we're negotiating. So there's this whole life cycle of reviewing, editing, and signing contracts with partners, customers, or whoever the key stakeholders are when we contract. And so each one of them has their own forms hooked into their own line of business tools. So they have different requirements. So I can easily access all of those apps within this workspace. Now, the third component is the analytics piece. So one of the main outcomes that we are looking for with app dev is not just to have the forms and workflow, but also get some telemetry on our processes, and even an inventory of what's being done for work inside of these individual workspaces. So that can be built right into the workspace as well, which is handy for upper management. These can also be permissioned. So if you want to get insight into just inventory of processes, or maybe dive deeper into individual processes like claim management, expenses, or whatever it is you decide to build inside of K2, you can go ahead and start dashboarding and make those dashboards accessible right within the workspace. And again, as you transition across different workspaces, you'll see the different dashboards that you've created in those workspaces. So you kind of have all the key components accessible within each individual workspace. Now, this UI is out of the box for our workspaces. So as you build forms, views, your tasks, your dashboards, they all roll into this workspace aesthetic. So again, this is all out of the box, but you can also build a custom workspace and incorporate your task forms and dashboards into a aesthetically customized workspace. So it doesn't look like this. It looks essentially however you want it to look, because a lot of these forms are just URL based, as well as the tasks and the dashboards. So you can just iframe them or just push them to like a .NET site that you've custom built and tailor made for your employees. Now, if we drill down into some of these applications, you'll notice that there are dashboards at the top, so you can aggregate what's going on in an individual application. These can all be customized. So what I see here in this view for insurance claims is a list tailored by claim stage. So I'm not seeing completed claims. I only see claims that are in process. And if I want to dig into an individual claim, I can go ahead and just double click into it and see the actual data. Now, what we're looking at right now is forms. So this first dashboard landing page is part of the form. This screen flow is also part of the form, which is multi-section, multi-tab. So if I look down, I see the areas in blue. These are different sections, or in our vernacular, they're called views, which are custom built, drag and drop, and they integrate with productivity tools. So each view can relate back to a line of business application. So let's say this claim stage progression, that individual view can link back to, let's say, SharePoint. And then a different section can link back to Dynamics. And then another section to SQL or SQL. And then another section to SAP. Because the facilitator for all of this data is smart objects, which is something that Bing covered in the slide earlier. And smart objects can all be surfaced within our views and forms designer. How you manage that is in a different area. But once you've incorporated your different line of business tools and databases, you can have kind of the line of business start building out these views and forms so that they have customized apps that they can work in and become more efficient. Now, there's also multiple tabs. Forms can also make web service calls. So if you wanted to integrate with like a mapping tool, or if you're using your phone with these applications, take photos and annotate and bring in data from other systems, you can create smart objects for them and begin creating those web requests directly from K2 views and forms. So this is a pretty robust form. Everything is handled here from uploaded documents, which can be stored in a file store solution like Box or SharePoint libraries. This is an on-premises tool, so these could also just be files stored on a server where we hook in the root location into K2, and you can pull directly from that server. Now, something that Bing also mentioned was governance and auditing. So out of the box, you can also see a history of who is logging in and making changes to these forms. You can log how long people are working, how long they're in these workspaces and actively going through their applications and workspaces and what they're modifying and approving. Again, all out of the box. So I have started a process in the expense claims application that we can go through. Now, this is a real-time push and pull with the integrated solutions. So if you're hooking in SQL or SAP or SharePoint or Dynamics, these forms are servicing that data from those apps in real time, and it's both push and pull. So not only do we surface it in the workspace, but as we modify data, we also push it back. So that's what we mean by push and pull. Now, I've started an expense for a meal. I submitted it as myself. And now within this application, I can assign a task to someone on the fly if I needed to. I can send a message, log conversations for anyone else reviewing this claim, edit the priority. But something else that I could also do, which is very handy if you take part in the process itself, is I can actually see what the process looks like for this individual application. So if I click into this Viewflow screen here, what I actually see is what is happening for this specific claim. And this is where we get into the orchestration part of K2. Not only can you build workflows and facilitate tasks and activities and connect with other line of business apps, but you could actually see what's taking place in the process itself in real time. So we see an entire view of this process. And not only that, but we actually see where it sits currently in the process. So if I look up at the top, everything highlighted in green is the path it's gone down, and what is currently in blue is what we're waiting for. So we can see that we updated our smart objects because as we initiated the expense claim, we had to log that we're going through approvals. Now, there is a decision that has to be made. Whoops, didn't mean to click that. If the approval is under $10,000, I believe, it gets auto approved and goes to a level 2 approval. If it's over 10,000, then it goes to a level 1, which is why you see it going directly to a level 2 approval. So you can build these branches and conditions. There's a ton of logic handling built into K2, so looping, branching by stage or state machines, decision treeing that you can do. So now we're waiting for someone to approve that expense. That person is actually me, and that is actually what is in my inbox. So I have that level 2 approval, and essentially we're just waiting for the response. Now, this is a form that is used both for the creation of expenses and also the approval. So we are leveraging one form several times throughout this process. So I can take that form and say it's also repurposed for tasks. I just add a little bit additional fields at the bottom for the approval. So this review details is not visible on the submission form, but it is visible on the task form. So I can say that this is approved, type my comments under 10K. So we will approve and then provide my outcome. Now I can reject, in which case, if I were to reject, it goes back to the originator and they must rework it. So I either comment and say you need a receipt or you need to update and itemize some of these items within the expense. But if I approve, then I go down and it goes to the finance review. So we'll go ahead and approve and then hit submit. And now that completes the task for myself. If we come back to the expense, if we come back to the view flow and just hit refresh, we will see that that level 2 approval is now in green and we've gone on to the finance review. So anyone that goes into this view flow has a history of where this expense went down in terms of path of approvals and what the outcomes were. And not only that, but everything is logged back in the expense claim itself. So if I were to refresh the workspace and go back to the expense, if I go to claim audit history, I can see that the approval was made by Ray Cabral, the comments that were included, and what the outcome was, and the day and time it was logged. And all these other ad hoc activities that I can add, adding conversation, adding messages, adding ad hoc tasks, those are all logged as well. So everything is accessible to anyone inside of this app and workspace at any time, as well as the entire view of the process. So if I wanted to finalize it, you can see now that that finance review actually goes to me. That's for demo purposes. Obviously, in a real world situation, all of these approvals would ideally go to someone else. So again, I can make my comments, hit submit. I could also reject if I wanted to send it back to the originator. And that would essentially end the expense process itself. So one more time, I come back to the process, hit refresh. We will see that now the workflow is done. And I still have my data inside of the workspace. I can access it if I wanted to review that claim at any time. One thing I forgot to show is that these forms can be dynamic. So right now, I don't see any details about this expense that was submitted, but if I click onto it, we can see specific details for that claim. So the receipt that was attached, which is from the restaurant that we submitted the claim for, the amount, if we did a conversion for the currency, this was submitted, let's say in EMEA, and we want to calculate it in USD, we have an automatic conversion runtime function that is converting that currency. The comments from the originator of the expense, what category it's under, any codes for any events that we may have submitted this claim under, and then the image of the receipt itself is all accessible within this form as well. And again, all of this can be customized. So that is an example of what a workspace, an application, and a form can do. And again, this is just an example process. You can build essentially whatever it is you have today with your line of business applications in SharePoint, SAP, Dynamics, Box, or anything else that you do. And the idea here is really to consolidate where work is done, because we have all these line of business tools and we often don't know who uses them, or maybe they're supposed to be used and they're not because people are used to a certain process, and everyone just wants everything to be in one place so they can work more efficiently. That's what you're getting with the K2 environment. So that's an example of how you would use K2 as an end user. Now, to actually design it is also fairly easy. If we come over to the designer environment, everything that we can build from the smart objects, which is what it pushes and pulls the data, can be built here. Again, these are what connect to your line of business tools like SAP, SharePoint, Dynamics. There's also a K2 database that's agnostic. So if you don't have a line of business tool and you just want to quickly build an app for a line of business that doesn't integrate with anything, it's just in K2, you can also do that as well. Then you also have your views, which again are like individual sections of a form. And then you have your form, which is more like a screen flow. So if you build a multi-tab, crossing multiple line of business tools, that's aggregated in a form. And then your orchestration piece, which is your workflow. So if we were to look at that expense form, which is what I have up here, you can see that it's basically a collection of views. So this is kind of a step you do at the end of building your application. You take your views, which you'll have access to over on the left, and you can essentially just drag them in. And I have read-only access to this environment, so I can't show you actively dragging them in. But you'll have everything in a library over on the left, everything from your forms to your workflows and your views, and you just drag and drop them right in. Now that means that another step of this process is managing views. So if we click into one, let's say this one, that is also managed in this environment. And it's all derived from smart objects. So if I were to, let's say, connect to SAP or SharePoint, and I define this view as a push and pull to a specific smart object, I will see what fields are accessible for that smart object over on the left, and we can easily import and add on to that smart object. So we see all those
Hey,
fields.
Ray.
Yep.
I have a quick question. I think it could be answered. Does K2 provide the simplicity of Nintex when building the action step attributes? I'm not quite sure what that means, but do you understand it?
I think that gets into orchestration, and I would say yes. So we're kind of skipping ahead here. I'll get to that, but
okay, no worries, Ray.
But what I think that question means is when you do the orchestration piece or the workflow piece, you're building a series of actions. So a task is an action, updating your line of business tools is an action, doing web requests is an action. And I think the question is asking, I've used Nintex in the past. This doesn't look like the Nintex I'm used to. So is action building similar, declarative, and easy to build? And I would answer yes. And I would say you'll see a little bit of that in a second. But to get back to form and view building, this is all drag and drop as well. So everything from the label that is included to the field that is included, you just drag and drop. And if you click on a field, all of the properties are managed over to the right. So whether that ties into a smart object in a push and pull fashion, and what field that pushes and pulls to, and what value we show from that field, like if it's an ID field, do we show the ID or do we want to show the name of a record? That is all managed right here in the properties of the field. And then you could also have runtime functions and rules tied to the views as well. So what this clear, update, and add button does, there's a whole rule building engine that sits on top of it. So you can build all these if-then scenarios for when buttons are clicked or fields are populated, everything from field validation, text masking, screen flows. Do I want to navigate someone to a different tab and build a big wizard type application like you would get with something like TurboTax? You can completely customize and build something like that within a K2 application. Now, something else you can build into views, forms with our rules is what process is kicked off. And that's when we get into orchestrating or workflows. Now, I believe that question was, how complicated is the process to build these actions within a workflow? It's all declarative. So what you'll have access to on the left is all of your smart objects. So if I click into my smart objects, we have all of our integrated tools accessible here. So if I come down and let's say I wanted to integrate with a specific SQL service, I click into SQL, and now all of the SQL tables that I've integrated into K2 are accessible here as smart objects. And I can just drag and drop whether I want to update or pull or push data into those tables. That's going to work similarly with services. So if I wanted to create, let's say, a file in Box, that would be done through a smart object. So you can just drag on the smart object you want to update. And so in this case, we're creating application data in a smart object for the expense. And then we'll have access to the methods. So what am I doing with that smart object? Do I want to create a record there? Do I want to delete something, load something, save it, or get a list? In this case, I want to use the create method. And now I'm defining what I want to create through variables I have access to. And you're going to have access to every variable in a form. So if a form kicks off a workflow, I will automatically inherit all of those variables from that form. So I have accessibility to all of those expense details, and I can just drag and drop those variables into the smart object. Now for things like decisioning, if I want to build a rule for whether or not that expense is greater or less than 10K, that is also declarative. So I can build as many paths as I want. And if I look at the actual rule itself, which is here, I can say if expense, which is a variable, is greater than 10,000, then I go through the manual branch. Otherwise, I auto approve. So that is declarative as well. And then task handling and notifications are also declarative. So when I choose my task, I can put in what actions are possible. So if I wanted a third action beyond approve, reject, I can add in a third path. I could also choose what form is used. So again, we can reuse that same exact form for submitting the expense in this case. And then any parameters that are needed to successfully populate that form, I could also pass within the workflow. I can then choose who's getting it as recipients. So is it a person? Is it a group? I can add groups from my directory, and I can build rules for how the response is handled. And if I go down, I can also customize the messaging, include any attachments, decide how the outcomes are determined. So is it the first response? If it's a group of people, must there be consensus? Is there some custom validation that I want to do to choose the outcome? And then choose what path I go down based off of the response. Also reminders, what messages are sent with reminders. Is there going to be a deadline tied to it? And when that deadline is met, am I escalating? What's the behavior when that happens? What am I going to name the task? And if there's any exceptions, how am I going to log it? So all of that is completely declarative. And if you wanted to bring in any additional actions, let's say we want another task done, we want to just add another type of approval, we can just drag that down, literally drag and drop. Let's say we want that to happen after the finance review. We would just click that guy,
Ray.
bring it down here. Oh, yep.
We have about 8 minutes left. Can you get to a stopping point here soon so we can at least have 5 minutes for some Q&A?
Absolutely. Was about to wrap up in about 2 minutes.
All right, perfect.
So if I wanted to add an additional task, I can just drag that onto the canvas wherever I want. You can see I can link where we're going to go down that path, and then, bring it back up to any other existing actions if I needed to. And then I would just set the properties of that task. So you can modify these at any time. It's all drag and drop. And you can also govern who has access to the designers. So if you want to limit who is a user from who can actually develop workflows, views, and forms, that is all something you can manage in our governance environment, which we call the management hub. And you can also govern who accesses the management hub as well, which is where you build the integrations. And we also integrate with REST and SOAP, in addition to a lot of out-of-the-box integrations with SAP, SharePoint, and Oracle. So there's a lot of possibilities to what you can build for these workspaces, apps, forms, and workflows. And with that, I'll go ahead and stop talking so we can go ahead and answer some questions.
You're all right. Before Ray drops off his screen, oops, too late. Does anyone have any questions about what they saw before we kind of wrap it up? I do know one question, Ray. Oops, I actually raised my hand. It was in regards to CAC-PIV type of functionality. Now, what I said, I believe it's on our roadmap to add that functionality in, but we don't have that native functionality yet. But I did say that K2 does support the ability to go and create that integration if you wanted to create a custom solution. Was I off base?
Yeah. So we don't, again, as being mentioned, we don't have out of the box, or we don't have a application that does digital signature with CAC-PIV. But what you could do is integrate with something. If you wanted to use Adobe for digital signatures, or connect to something like Entrust, which is a great digital signing tool that does CAC and PIV, you can build a integration through smart objects that would connect to those other applications that do support it through SOAP or REST API. Or you can just simply download the document, sign through Adobe, and re-upload it into a task or something like that. Oh, and then one other thing, if that question is in regards to who is in the workspace, what you could also do is have your single sign-on solution require CAC and PIV to even just log into the workspace. So if your directory and single sign-on tool already handles that, you can just integrate it with K2.
Awesome. Are there any other folks? Any other questions? All right. Well, I know we only have a few minutes left. Let me just review this for you. When you get this deck, I'd like you to all kind of go to the very bottom of the deck and take a look at what we call hyper intelligent automation. So this is really where Nintex is focused, and it kind of explains and breaks down what that means. And so when you read this, I think you'll notice how this really lines up nicely to where we are as a platform today. And I thought it would be pretty interesting to add. And then in regards to hyper intelligent automation, because that's all that Nintex does. We only focus on making you successful as fast as possible, only automation. And you can see that we only focus on automation, and because of that, we're absolute leaders. So we're committed to your success. We have training. So if you are a Nintex customer, everybody gets access to our university. We have a solution gallery filled with templates beyond templates beyond templates. We have implementation services. So we have customer success managers, customer adoption managers. We also have professional services if you don't even feel like building anything. We have a wonderful support and community. So everything is here to make sure that you're 100% successful. We didn't get a chance to show our faces, but I am Bingham Blaylock, Ray Cabral. He's the one that provided you with the demo today. And our fearless leader, which you probably all know very well, is Steve Witt. I'd also like to give a special shout out to Abrahams. So if you do have any...
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, absolutely.
I was having major problems. But thank you so much for the presentation, and thank you, DISA, for allowing us to present today. I'm sorry that we were able to introduce ourselves, but Bingham, you did a pretty good job. But in case you need to reach out to us, you can certainly reach me, Angela Gibson, at abrahamsconsulting.com. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Angela. And for all the folks that joined us today, special thank you. I know that this is time that you dedicate on your own. You spend an hour to learn about new solutions. And so I just really want to say I appreciate you taking time out of your day to spend time with us to learn about Nintex K2. And with that, I will stop sharing and I will hand it off to Joe to wrap things up.
Hi, Nintex. Do you happen to have a contact slide in your slide deck that shows POCs for folks to reach out to, email addresses, phone numbers, or anything like that for further discussions?
Yeah, it's on.
Actually, the way we typically do that, you would circle back with Abrahams, and then we would funnel it through to Nintex. That's why we are operating as a co-branding partner.
Well, we do have all that information on that slide deck. It looks like it didn't pull up, but on the slide deck, phone numbers, email addresses for both Abrahams and Nintex if you do have any questions.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'd like to thank Nintex and Abrahams Consulting for coming in today and presenting this capability. I'd like to thank everybody in the audience for taking time out of your day to take part in this session. Again, if you are interested in further exploring this capability, ask to reach out to Abrahams Consulting. Specifically, I believe Miss Angela Gibson is the POC. Yep, there's her contact information on the screen, so please reach out to her for further discussions about the Nintex capability. I also like to put a plug in for our DISA Works Innovation Lab. That is a lab we have stood up in Columbia, Maryland. It's in the same building as Dreamport, which is Cyber Command's Innovation Lab. And we are using our innovation lab, the DISA Works Innovation Lab, to perform testing, evaluation, piloting of technologies that are out in industry for potential use in the DoD. So again, if you are interested in exploring this technology or any other technology you have seen from other technical exchanges or anywhere you've seen them, please reach out to my organization, the DISA Emerging Technology Directorate, for further discussions. So again, I'd like to thank everyone again for your time today and wish you all a wonderful day. Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, folks.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.